Steve Bannon speaks, and them is fighting words. I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, and this Right Angle is brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Well, gentlemen, as everybody in the universe has heard by now, Charlie Rose, everybody's favorite beloved transfer from PBS over to the regular broadcasting networks because he was so dynamic on PBS, did an interview with Steve Bannon, the former Svengali in the White House, who's now working back at his old job running Breitbart News. Bannon portrays himself as a street fighter and openly says during the course of the Charlie Rose interview that he is going to war with the GOP, specifically establishment Republicans, and he names names, basically the congressional leadership and others in the cabinet. And he says, Steve Bannon says, that establishment Republicans are trying to nullify the election of 2016. Now, Stephen Green, Steve Bannon makes this accusation in the midst of probably the most crucial part, at least so far, of the Trump administration, when the president could really use some support from congressional Republicans. Should Donald Trump rebuke him or distance himself from him? After all, Trump is not only a former Democrat, he's also a former Hillary supporter and Nancy Pelosi supporter. Wouldn't it make some sense for him to say, now, you know, Mr. Bannon doesn't speak for the administration?
Oh boy, this is such a mess. And Donald Trump was already at war with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan. He called the House Obamacare replacement bill mean, and he taunted Mitch McConnell for failing to get it through the Senate. But that probably didn't happen because John McCain is at war with Donald Trump and lent his weight to the no effort on the GOP side to replacing Obamacare. So who started it? Who's to blame? Oh, it's just a big cluster fudge, really. You can't point fingers and blame. That said, I think everybody here knows that Steve Bannon is not my cup of tea. I predicted on this show back in March or April that he's just a bad actor and he'd be gone by the end of the year. And sure enough, here he is on the outside looking in. That said, I really love what he's doing. I might not prefer maybe some of the individual candidates that he'll be supporting against the GOP. But this goes right to the heart of something Ace of Spades wrote, I think in the 2014 midterm election. I'm not sure. He said, you know, we need to target some of these rhinos. We've got a big enough majority in the House that we should target some of these rhinos to just take them out in the general election, not even in the primary. Take them out in the general election. Put the fear of God into the rest, that if we can take out Paul Ryan, we can take out you too. And really get this GOP churning to understand that they go to Washington to serve their constituents, to vote the way their constituents voted them in to do, to represent them, in other words. And if Bannon can do this, if he can shake up this moribund, hidebound, cowardly GOP House majority and Senate majority, then he's still not going to be my cup of tea. But I think maybe I'm starting to like the taste a little better.
Steve, let me ask you a quick follow-up question on that strategy, because you speak these words over the moribund corpse, politically speaking, of Eric Cantor, who is gone now, and I'm as far as I can see, his absence from Congress has not shaken anything up, has not suddenly made all the other Republicans realize that their careers are on the line as well.
No, it didn't, and this is why Ace said we don't go after them in the primary. We go after these guys in the general election. Treat them with so much disdain that we'd say we'd rather have a real Democrat instead of a Republican in name only.
Well, that's right there the problem, and segues perfectly into the question I was going to ask Bill Whittle. Bill, how does a Republican president, or at least nominally Republican president, go after people in his own party or allow his surrogates to do so without hopelessly hobbling the only hope for conservative change that we have, and also enabling the Democrats and their progressive agenda?
This isn't his own party. It's just not. I mean, to say that he's going after Republicans, he's going after his own party, it's not his own party. Of all the things I've seen since Donald Trump is president, the thing that offended me the most, I think without question, was that stupid, smug little smile on John McCain's face when he went up there to cast that vote to stop the Obamacare repeal.
Yeah.
I've got a little secret. I'm not going to tell. Okay, John. Okay. We've said this 100 times. The Obamacare repeal is more than just legislation. It is symbolic of the entire reason that the Tea Party and the conservative movement really got lit on fire. And when we got lit on fire, we gave them the House and we gave them the Senate and we gave them the presidency. And now these Republicans in Congress will not act. And as you guys have pointed out before, they talked big before because they knew they wouldn't have to act. They knew that they could bleat and yell and scream about how much they wanted to repeal Obamacare because they knew it was never going to happen. Now that it's going to happen, they want nothing to do with it. I have never been so disgusted with politicians in my life. They make me much more angry than people like Chuck Schumer or Elizabeth Warren, who are open-air idiots.
Free-range idiots.
Yeah. So I agree with Steve. It's not a pleasant place to find yourself on the same side as Steve Bannon. He's one of the most unpleasant people that I've ever encountered.
Yes.
But I think he's got the right idea. And look, I think the country still supports Donald Trump, or at the very least, enough of the country supports the idea of the destruction of the status quo so that should be his constituency. And I know people are having vapor fits about Trump making deals with the Democrats and so on. But if you make a deal with the Democrats because the Republicans wouldn't do what they said they would do, I think that's political showmanship. I don't think it's great. I'm not happy about it. I'm not like, woo, wonderful, we made a deal with the Democrats. Not at all. But something's got to shake these Republican rhinos out of their stupor. And if it's not something like this, it's going to be a landslide Democratic victory in 2018 when people like you and me stop going out to support people with an R after their name. We're just not going to do it anymore. I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, I'm done.
Well, even as you speak those words, today I read in the New York Times, Mitch McConnell basically saying, hey, you Democrats who are all pumped up about the fact that you got President Trump to do what you wanted on the debt ceiling, you spiked the ball before you got to the end zone. And now it's hard to tell whether this is spin after the fact, but McConnell's basically playing this as, hey, this was a nothing to give away. We're not upset about this at all. In fact, these debt ceiling conversations were going to stretch into 2018 anyway. It doesn't make any difference. And so he's really playing that down and basically trying to make it sound like he was in on a plan with the president. Now, I'm suspicious of that, and he doesn't come right out and say it. But I'll tell you, I mean, I've gotten to the point over a long period of time, including very close interaction with people at the local level, with the Republican Party, at which I say, a pox on both your houses.
There you go.
Frankly, if Steve Bannon is doing something that's going to go to war with the Republican Party and in some way hobble it or bring it down, I'm not sure we lose anything. I only hope that there's somebody within the Democratic Party who is doing something similar, and maybe we have a complete reshuffling of the deck. I think that this stasis that we've come to, where the two major parties in Washington and frankly elsewhere around the country have come to a non-gentleman's agreement, a wink and a nod that basically says, you don't mess with me too much, I won't mess with you, we'll talk tough in public. It's like a staged, WWE fight or professional boxing match where they get out and they talk trash to each other because they know that that's going to bring the box office up on the pay-per-view. And I'm just sick of it all. So actually, this is stunning for me to admit. This is on this Charlie Rose interview, it's the first time I've ever seen Steve Bannon speak. And I kept thinking, at what point during the interview am I going to go, that guy's insane? And the more I listened to it, I thought,
Never happened.
Wow, he should have spoke for Trump because he does it better. I thought he should have been the public spokesman, not the little nattering guy in the background on the phone with the guy from the New Yorker or whatever. I'm not saying I agree, and frankly, I have major disagreements with the kind of economic nationalism and some of the views on how they approach immigration, although I think we have common goals. But I listened to Steve Bannon and I thought, It wouldn't be such a bad thing if the GOP was put to flight. It wouldn't be such a bad thing if some of the major stalwarts started to lose their seats. My own former congressman in the 15th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, Charlie Dent, announced after 7 terms that he's not going to seek re-election. He said nobody forced him out, and he's been thinking about it for a while, and that's fine. But I think to a certain extent, guys like Charlie, who have been part of the old boys network, thinking that they were the reasonable politicians all along, but really just going along to get along, are being chased out of the system by the extremes. And at some point, the extremes are going to go to war, and who knows how that's going to shake out. But I'm eager to see, and I'm willing to try anything at this point. For Bill Whittle and Stephen Green, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.